What's up, guys? Welcome back to Daniel Talks Football right here on YouTube. I'm Daniel and we are back with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing my championship predictions. I didn't do them last year. That's because I sort of stopped paying attention to the championship last year because I didn't really have to. However, after a certain football club have returned to the greatest league in the world, I've always said that, to the greatest league in the world, we're back to do championship predictions. Before we do get into the video, please make sure to like the video, comment down below, and also subscribe to the channel. Go over and follow the TikTok and the Instagram, Daniel Talks Football, on both. Right, now the championship is the toughest league in the world to predict. Lots of transfers will still be made, and the championship is just the championship. So, God knows basically how this is going to go. I'm going to try my best. I've made my predictions. Let's see what happens. In 24th place, I've gone for Sheffield Wednesday. Who's surprised? I'm definitely not. There's a lack of quality in that squad. They really haven't improved on it much from that League One campaign last year. You know, the sacking of Darren Moore will not help things. That is a Darren Moore squad. It's a squad that he's assembled and a squad that's been built for him. He's not there anymore. I think this is going to be a poor season for Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, we forget this Sheffield Wednesday side was beat by a lot of goals last year in that first leg of that League One playoff semi-final. They didn't get lucky to get promoted, of course they didn't, but it's not a championship side. I'm sorry, Sheffield Wednesday, but I think you're going down bottom. I promise it's nothing to do with my bias as a Leicester fan. I just don't think you're good enough. Moving on into 23rd, and I'm going to give it to Rotherham. The squad looks a lot weaker than it did last year, and I just don't think there's much quality at all in that squad. I think they're gone. Johansson is one of their bright spots. There's probably one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Whoever I can see him getting a move, either before the end of the summer or in January. I just don't think they're good enough. I think they're going to go down. I think they're going to go down 23rd. And then in 22nd, as the final team getting relegated, I've got Cardiff City. Now, this is a shock. However, I think the high turnover of managers reeks of ignorance at board level, to be honest. Bula has no English experience in any of the English leagues at all. And I think he'll be quite poor. I don't think he will work in English football. I think they'll sack him early. I think he'll be gone by the end of November, to be honest. But then I think they'll go out and make that same mistake again. I don't think they'll go out and get somebody with that English experience. I think it's a decent group of players. However, I can see Ramsey getting injured early on and being out for more or less the whole season, to be honest. And I'm not too confident in that midfield or the defence to keep them up. They've got a good attack, but I just think they'll leak too many goals. I think Cardiff, you're going down. Moving on into 21st now, and we've got Plymouth. I think they'll just about stay up, to be honest. I think bringing somebody like Whittaker back to the club is a really smart decision. Well, I don't know too much about their manager. They won League One fairly convincingly, and I think they'll just about have enough to stay up, to be honest. I like this Plymouth side. I think they'll do well, and I think they'll survive. Moving on into 20th, and I'm going to go for QPR. Now, I've seen some people say that they'll go down. However, I have some faith. I know there's issues in the boardroom. I know there's lots of issues throughout the club, to be honest. However, I do think they'll just about manage to stay up. Ainsworth has shown that he can be flexible in pre-season. And I think with Chair and Willock still at the club, they will keep them up. Chair and Willock are two excellent players. Ilias Chair, somebody I would have liked to see at Leicester, and Chris Willock, obviously an excellent player. I think they'll just about scrape it, presuming they can hang on to those two players until the end of the season. If they lose both of them in January or even before the end of the summer window, then I think they really will struggle and could see them going down. However, at this moment, they've still got them. I think they'll stay up. 19th, we've got Huddersfield. Now, for me, Neil Warnock is the difference here. It's a fairly poor squad at Huddersfield. However, we all know what Neil Warnock can do. And I think he'll lead them to safety. It's not going to be a special season. It's going to be Neil Warnock football. It's not going to be exciting. But I think Warnock will be the difference, and he'll keep Huddersfield in the league. Moving on into 18th now, and we have a Blackburn. Now, it was a huge tail-off in form towards the end of last season. The only person that was scoring goals for them was Brereton Diaz, and when he stopped performing, so did Blackburn. They've lost Brereton Diaz, and I don't think they've managed to replace him well enough. The ownership situation is unsure at that football club, and I think they will be going down. I don't think they'll be going down. I think they'll finish 18th. I think it will be a poor season for Blackburn, but they will survive. They'll be fine. But I am worried for them. It's not going to be a good season by any means. In 17th, Preston. I think they've made some good additions. I think somebody like Calvin Ramsey is a really, really good addition to that side. And, coming from Liverpool, he's a good player, Calvin Ramsey, for sure. I think the league's just got stronger in general, and I don't think Preston have particularly kept up with that trend to be able to push on and try push for playoffs. It'll be a decent enough season. 17th place, they'll take it and move on. 16th, we've got the most trigger-happy football club in the world. It's Watford. They finished 11th last year, and I think that trigger-happy nature I just spoke about there, it puts me into doubt of where they're actually going to end up finishing. Ishmael needs time, and I think that's one thing he's not going to be afforded at Watford. I think there's a lack of goals in that current squad as well, with people like Ismail Assar and Emmanuel Dennis moving on. They need an ownership change, and until they get that, they're not going to be pushing for Premier League promotion at all. If anything, I think they need to be more worried about dropping down into League One, because it's things aren't going well for Watford, and something needs to change. Hull in 15th. Now, I think Liam Rosenior is a top quality coach, and after some decent signings like Ruben Vinagre, who I really like. Look, he was at Everton last season. I know he didn't play, but there's a player in there, and if Rosenior can bring that out, then I think he will be an excellent player. Javier Simons, I think, again, a really good player. And Liam Delap, there's a player in there, if you can get it out of him. There's a reason why Man City have kept him for all this time, and you never know, he might be good at a throw-in as well. I think it'll be a comfortable season for Hull. I also really like Tufan. I think he's a really, really good player, and we all know the money that Hull spent last summer trying to get up. They didn't. But I think Rosenior is a good coach, and I think if you give him 2 or 3 years, you could definitely be pushing for playoffs. 14th, and we have Bristol City. Now, I think Bristol's season massively depends on Alex Scott. If Scott stays, I think Bristol will do well. If Scott goes, and it depends first of all on how much money they get from him and how much of that money they invest into replacing him and patching up other areas of the squad. If he does go, it'll be down to Big Nige to spend the money well, which is something I think he could do. I trust in Nigel Pearson. And obviously, I'm a Leicester fan, and I've saw what he's done with my football club over the years. I think Nigel Pearson is a really, really good manager, and I rate him very, very highly. I think it's slow progress for Bristol under him, but I do think they are making progress. I think it'll be a decent season all round. And they've got Andy King, my favourite ever player. Kingy, love you. Moving on into 13th, and we have Stoke City. Now, there's a big rebuilding job to be done there, and it has been started to be done by Alex Neil. I think they've made some good signings like Keanu Hoover and Pearson as well. Neil is a good manager, and brings some like Travers in as well. I think he's a good goalkeeper coming in from Bournemouth. I think they will start to push on. Don't think it'll be a playoff push for them this season. I think, you give Alex Neil this season, rebuild that squad, get them into a decent position, then you give them next summer to complete that rebuild. A rebuild isn't just a one summer thing. Give them next summer, complete the rebuild, and then I think next season they can start to push on for playoffs. Moving on into 12th, and we have Birmingham City. Now, the new ownership is a massive plus for the Blues. Signers like Buchanan, Bielik, Dembele and Roberts, I think they're all good players, and I think they all will do really, really well. I think give them 2 to 3 years and they'll be challenging for playoffs. There's a lot of holes to patch up within that squad. It is a poor group. Let's be honest, it's a very poor group. But the new ownership coming in, it will help them push on. This is possibly a little bit optimistic, but I think the feed around the Blues is good at the moment. Yeah, I've got some faith in them. I'll give them 12. In 11th, we have Swansea City. Now, I'm not sure how they'll cope without Russell Martin as their manager. However, I do think Duff is a solid replacement. He did really well in League One last season, and yeah, I think he's a good manager. I think he was in League One. He was at Barnsley. I know that. I can't remember what division Barnsley were in last season. I think if they keep hold of Pirot, they will do well, and they could even push on even higher if they were to keep hold of Pirot and if he were to keep up to those goal-scoring standards. The issue is if they were to sell him, with him only having 1 year left on that contract, how much are you going to get from him? You're probably looking at about 10 million, and that's not going to be enough to replace him. However, again, with him having 1 year left on that contract, you saw with somebody like Brereton Diaz last season, towards those final 6 months, their mind will be elsewhere and they won't be focusing on Swansea. I think it'll be a decent season. 11th place, I don't think anybody will be complaining with that. Moving on into 10th, and I have given 10th to West Bromwich Albion. Carlos Corberán is a very, very good manager, and I really like him. I think he's probably one of the 5 best managers in this league, to be honest. The issue is I'm not too sure where the goals do come from in this West Brom side. Darryl Dike always injured, and even still, he obviously had that he's had a really weird career. Like, he had about 6 months at Barnsley when he was excellent, when they pushed on for playoffs, which seems like ages ago now. Barnsley were looking to get to the Premier League. He hasn't really been the same kind of player since, though. As I say, I don't think this West Brom side will be able to push any higher than sort of, this 10th spot. They could possibly push for playoffs. I just don't see where the goals come from. There's also some uncertainty behind the scenes as well, which will never help on the field. Moving on into 9th, and I've got Coventry. Now, I don't like Coventry. I really don't like Coventry. On Sunday, going to watch Coventry versus Leicester, and I do not like Coventry. However, I think the side they had last season was good. I can't say I like it, but I rated them. Don't like them. Never will. Don't like your Coventry. Promise there's no bias in this prediction at all. However, I do think losing Gyökeres will hurt them. I think Sims is a good addition to that side, but he's nowhere near the same level as Gyökeres. I think they'll be challenging for playoffs again. I don't think they'll get playoffs. I don't think they'll get promoted. And Coventry, you'll be staying in the Championship, lads, as hopefully we'll be going up. Don't come back to bite me saying that, please. Next up, we've got Ipswich. I really, really like Kieran McKenna, and that's quite obvious by the fact I've put Ipswich in 8th position, considering they've only just got promoted from League One. They've made some very ambitious signings. I think also bringing somebody back to the club, like George Hurst, a player who I've obviously kept a keen eye on after he was at Leicester for all those years. I think that's a key addition. I think they'll do well. I think they'll be pushing for playoffs. I don't think they'll quite get playoffs. I don't think they're quite at that level yet. But I think if you give somebody like Kieran McKenna 2 years, I think give him this season, the next season, I think they'll get playoffs, to be honest, if they can continue going on that upwards path. This could be one that could really backfire. Moving on into 7th, and I've put Norwich. Now, they've got talent in that squad. We all know they do. They were a Premier League side only 2 years ago. However, last season's bad end to the season where they couldn't pick up points, that will not go well. That will not go down well. I'm not sure about Wagner. I'm not sure if he's a good manager. My mind's not quite made up on him yet, especially with this Norwich squad. There's been some good signings there. I just don't think they'll quite get to the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, moving into 6th position, we have Millwall. Now, I really like some of Millwall's signings. We all know, obviously, the Millwall crowd and how much that will sort of, push them on and also really scare the oppositions. I still remember the story of a former Leicester player, Ben Shaw, not wanting to take a throw-in because he was scared of the fans. I really like the addition of Casper Denor from Oliverne. He's one of their best players. And for those that don't know, Oliverne and Leicester City are two sides that are linked. So I've always kept a close eye on Oliverne. I think Denor is a good player, and I think he will do well with this Millwall side. They need to upgrade the goalkeeper position, and that's something I'm hoping they will do before the end of the window. If they do, again, I stick with a 6th position. If they don't, then I would push them down, but I think they will, and I think they'll scrape playoffs. In terms of that goalkeeper, it could be ambitious, but Newcastle do currently have 4 goalkeepers on their books. I think there was either a video coming out about that earlier on this week or coming out later this week. I'm literally about to record that in about 5 minutes. Could he go out and maybe get Karius from them? Would be an excellent signing if he could. But I think Millwall, 6th place, I think they'll do well. Moving on into 5th, and I've gone for Leeds. Now, Leeds are an uncertain club, obviously. They're getting rid of that Red Bull style that they sort of went with for quite a while under Jesse Marsh. We saw all those sort of players who had those relegation release clause loans in their contract. They're all now going there, all going out, and you're not getting much money for them, of course. It's uncertain because you're getting a lot of those sort of players who wouldn't work in the Championship because they're too pretty. You're getting a lot of them gone, and that's good, obviously. I really like the signing of Ampadu. I think Ampadu is an excellent player, and I've always rated him. So I think he is a good player. It's incredibly certain as to who will still be here at the start of the season. Will somebody like Willie Gnonto stay? If he does, he'll tear up the Championship. But I think they'll get 5th. I'm unsure, but they're making the right steps. They're getting the players that don't want to be there out of the door. And yeah, I'll go with 5th. Moving on into 4th, and I've got Middlesbrough. Now, I really, really like Michael Carrick as a manager. I think they made some good additions in the likes of Seny Dieng from QPR. I think he's a really good goalkeeper. I think they'll get playoffs, and I do think they'll win the playoffs. I will actually put my money on the line and say that Borough will be getting promoted from the playoffs. As I say, I think Carrick is a really, really good manager. I've always rated Carrick. I think he's a top quality manager. I wanted him at Leicester. I like Borough. I think they'll go up. But yeah, 4th place for now. And then in 3rd, I've gone for Sunderland. I think they'll get playoffs again this season. I really like the pickup of somebody like Bradley Dack if they can keep him fit. This was a player who I've kept an eye on for a long time now. I was even tipping him for a Premier League move. I think it must have been early 2020. If he can stay fit, that's an excellent signing. Somebody like Joe Bellingham as well could really kick on too. His ceiling is incredibly high. If he can reach that kind of ceiling, God knows, Sunderland could be selling him for 105 million in 2 years down the line. Yeah, I really like Sunderland. I think they'll get third place. Don't think they will get promoted this season, but yeah, I like Sunderland. In 2nd place, going back up to the Premier League, I have Southampton. Reasons for this is that Southampton squad is still a good squad. They've got a lot of good young players in there. They need to bring in some more experience. Of course they do. And that's something that the board is going to need to do, even if they are reluctant to do it, as we saw last season. However, they're going to sell Romeo Lavia for 45 to 50 million. As a championship side, that is stupid money. And if they even decide to spend 30, 40 million of that, yeah, they'll be fine. They need to bring in some experience, but I think Southampton will be going straight back up. They've got some excellent players there, some really exciting young players who do probably need a season in the Championship. I think the relegation for Southampton is actually a good thing because of all those young players they brought last season. They can now have a season in the Championship, go back up, and I think actually when they go back up, I think they'll probably rebound quite well and possibly even be pushing for sort of top half within the first season or two. And then 1st place, you all knew it was coming. Leicester City. This isn't even that biased because I've seen most other predictions put Leicester first. The signings have been good. The signing of Connor Cody is a signing that has impressed a lot of Leicester fans and is a really smart deal. Harry Winks, I think, will come in and do well if we can keep him fit alongside a midfield. We can have a midfield of Soumare, Dewsbury Hall and Winks. I think that is a championship winning midfield easily. I'm not quite sure about Mads Hermansen yet. However, you can give him time, and if he's not going to work, you do have Daniel Ederson there. The key thing for Leicester will be about getting players out of the door. You do need to bring in a couple more as well. I think another centre-back would be ideal. I think an 8/10 is needed. I think a right winger is needed and fast. But there are still some good players in that squad, and some you will be able to let go of. You can let go of Wilfred Ndidi, Danny Ward, Kelechi Iheanacho, Dennis Pratt, Yannick Vestergaard, Timothy Castagna. You could let go of those 6 players and not really feel it. I think Leicester will be getting promoted. I think they've got a good group. And yeah, back up to the Premier League we go. But yeah, there we go. They are my championship predictions. Let me know what you think of them in the comments below, and I'll catch you all again in the next video.